from the outside world might seem reasonable or like monologues.
I don't have any.
You know.
No, of course not. Why would they task me to do something unreasonable?
Well, I don't. Unreasonable is the wrong word.
It's not like that. It's not
Pushing you too hard, or what I'm thinking
well, of course,
is
yeah. I mean, it's like if you're thinking of working on your mind, then your mind is what you're working on. Like if you're working on your body, you're working on your muscles. So what you have to do is push your body, and it's going to hurt, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what practice is. So if it doesn't hurt, you're not going to get better.
right.
If you don't do more push-ups, if you don't do it well, you're not going to get better. So then, by definition, practice is difficult. So then obviously the practice of working on your mind, and then if your guru is skillful, and they see your mind. So in my case, I work for my lamas. They're not just my lamas, but I've worked for them in their organisation, for their centres. So for example, giving me a job that I didn't like to do, obviously. Working with people I couldn't stand. Best. I mean, that's the best practice. If you just have to think, what am I trying to practice? What am I trying to work on? My delusions. How do you work on your delusions when you're with people you don't like? Perfect job. There's an example.
That's what I meant.
Well, that's it. Because that's what you're working on, your mind.
And Monlam told us a story about his sasas. I think that's a lovely story, and if you're willing to share that, just a little bit of it.
What?
That's how he started the Sasa studio?
I have no idea about that. Why would I know about that?
Oh, I thought you knew. I'm sorry.
Why should I?
Because you're well acquainted.
I don't know every story everybody has. People don't necessarily talk about
sorry,
things.
Sorry.
He obviously gives you an example because he's teaching, so then that
Right.
doesn't mean he's going to sit there and tell me
Right.
about his experiences.
But
Anyway, that's his
Lama
experience.
told him to do many hundred thousands of sasas,
Sorry?
which is kind of mind-boggling.
Why? Why is that mind-boggling? That's not mind-boggling. Somebody got a practice. Somebody was told, one person who'd never met Rinpoche before had a meeting with him, and he wanted practices. He gave him a practice to do a certain number of nyungnes, their fasting retreats. And when you counted it, it would have taken about 400 years.
That's what I meant. Thank you.
So then, having chosen the Lama, chosen your teacher, or, checked on their teachers, you then begin to commit yourself to practice. And then, of course, you need to, then we start. This is just, this is the basis. Then you do this contemplation that a teacher recommends, called thinking about this precious human life. So again, it's all listed. It's listed in terms of 18 different points. But I'll just talk about it sort of in an easygoing way, what this means, what it means. Why should we think about the preciousness of this life? Well, what a teacher's wanting us to do is get kind of a wake-up call to think, to not want to waste this life. So, of course, with us now, the view we have is either someone else made us, that someone else made us, and that I began in my mother's womb. And so we tend to think that life is like something that someone gives to you. So you can sometimes think that you can think that you're fortunate. If you look around the world, you can see, can't you, that you maybe got a fortunate life. Well, the emphasis here for a teacher is that you do this. You literally, it's like doing some market research. You check your own life in reference to others, and you see that you've got certain advantages. And the added point, of course, is here that you created that. You created the cause to have those advantages. So you can look into the world and you can see, for example, that you're born in a place where you've got leisure, where you have when you do work, you have enough money left over that you can actually afford to not have to work every day. That's something so precious. And what does that give you, that leisure? That gives us the precious opportunity to think about. To think about the meaning of life. If you're having to struggle every day just to survive in some kind of war zone, or you're having to struggle every day just to survive to get your rice enough to eat food every day, you don't have much chance to think of anything but that, So here we have a good life with good bodies and good health and good family, reasonably speaking, if we compare with the world, good environment, reasonable political environment, It's kind of like a miracle if we compare with many lives. Then the thing that gives us, if we want to use it, which is what we're doing, is the opportunity to listen to our inner aspirations, to ask the questions we ask, which causes us to pursue things like this. And that's something very rare and very precious, You look at the world. So to have even that imprint in the mind that wants to do this is something so special. So don't just take that for granted, Don't just take this good life for granted. And as I've been saying with karma, when you think that you created the cause, you set it up to have this body, this health, this wealth, whatever, then that's something that you wouldn't want to waste. When if you see all your money in the bank, you worked hard for it, even a small amount, and you don't want to waste even $1 of it. You wouldn't want to waste it because two things, you worked for it, but most crucial, its value. So the value of this life is how we're talking, and it sounds a bit odd to think of it in this way, but it's very reasonable. If you just take something for granted, then you waste it, don't you? Well, that's what we're doing, really. We just take this life for granted. So if we do have a good life, we just waste it. Just think, oh, aren't I lucky? I have a good life every day, twiddle your thumbs, wait for the next day to come, have a nice meal and do nice this. But if you think in the point of view of karma, it's totally tipping it down the toilet. It's like having a big vegetable garden, and you keep thinking, aren't I lucky having all these vegetables? Oh, I'm so lucky having all these vegetables. You forgot all the hard work, you forgot it came from seeds, and you forget that if you keep eating them and don't grow more, you're going to end up with nothing. And that's exactly what we do. You think about it. We're sort of kind of dazzled by the goodness of our life. We just think every day, aren't we lucky? So we relax, we eat our nice meals, we go to bed, we get up. We just think it's kind of, in other words, we're having this sense that it's sort of permanent out there, that we're not just using it up. And that's the point. When you think of karma, it's like the vegetable garden. Every second you're experiencing something good and not sowing another seed that's good on the basis of it, then you're wasting it. You're just eating the vegetables and put it into the toilet. That's it. You've got to replace it with more seeds, So the essential thing that a teacher's trying to get us to get from thinking about the preciousness of this life, how fortunate we are, is this idea of not wanting to waste it. Not wanting to waste it. And so how you waste it, that idea of wasting money, use it for something stupid, wasting your vegetables, is eating them or letting them rot and not growing more, because it's a finite energy, isn't it? Well, the same here. This good life we have, that we created, we're using it up. Every time you eat, one good thing more happens, you've finished it. It's finished. It's like a fruit. It's now finished. So you need to create more seeds on the basis of it. But mostly we're just creating more attachment, more delusions, So the energy to get, the thought to get, is to not want to waste this life. So how do you not waste it? This precious resource that you have. Well, if you think of money and food, we understand they're dynamic. We understand you've got to do things to get them, and we understand them simply as a resource. So the very meaning of the word resource. It means you use it for something skillful. You don't waste it. Well, that's what this life is. But we don't think of it as a resource. We just concretize it. We grasp it, this self-existent me. We don't see it as something that's being used up, until we start getting very old. And then we get kind of the hint that it's now running out, So we've got to get a vivid sense that it's something precious and not to waste it. So what is it precious for? What is it we can do with this resource? Well, again, this is based on the idea of karma, isn't it? That if what I have now is the fruit of what I've done before, and given that I will die, then obviously I want more of the same. This is the Buddhist idea, very much. I want more of the same, please, because I'll continue, according to Buddha. So then I need more of the same. So the same, this is simple, with the vegetables. You just sow more of those seeds. You keep ahead of the game. Very simple. So what seeds do you need to sow with using this precious resource called this body, this mind? Well, more virtue, that's it. This life we have now is the fruit of virtue. Any good thing you have is the fruit of virtue. If you have money, it's the fruit of your past generosity. If you can get a job easily, it's it's the result of your generosity and not stealing. If you have people who are kind to you, it's the result of your being kind to them. If have people who enjoy your presence and things, and it's because you've been patient. If people help you and support you, it's because you've been kind, helped others. All these simple things that we know we do take for granted, but which, when we think about it, are something so precious and that enable us to live our life. But they're all the result of our past hard work. So if you want another decent human life, you better not kill. You better accumulate lots of non-killing. If you want to have things so you can continue to live a life that's reasonable, so you can continue to practice your spiritual path, you need to be generous. If you want to have a pleasing appearance, so people are kind to you and nice to you, then you need to be patient. If you want to have people believe your words, then you need to tell the truth and not lie. Do you see? It's very reasonable. If karma is the way things are, if seeds is is the cause of having vegetables, then you know how to get more. If karma, if cause and effect, if morality is the cause of getting what you want, very simple. You create more. That's the way to live this life. Very simple. This is the basic level, most basic. Just create more of the same seeds. Don't just, get attached to the nice things and get angry with the things you don't get and just use it all up by being depressed and being angry and not creating more seeds. It's really simple. More than this, you can even do more practice. You can actually even get out of this nonsense altogether. You can realize emptiness, get rid of all the delusions. And even more than this, you can actually develop bodhicitta and become an amazing being and benefit others. So there's so much we can do with this resource, this human life, that we take for granted and don't really see as precious. We tend to see all the miserable things. I didn't ask to get born. What a drag life is. It's all view, You look at it carefully, you're going to see you're extremely fortunate. If you compare with animals, if you compare with most other humans, having even just the mind we have, that's fairly reasonable, that even wants to think about these things, not just think about eating, sleeping and going to the toilet, Extremely fortunate. So to think about this, okay, Atisha puts it down in a very formal way, and there's 18 different things to consider, But I'm just talking about it in a general way, the essence of it. And just in our own way we can see. If we look and just compare with others, we can see we're fortunate. Not to be arrogant about it. And then to remember that you created it. So what a tragedy to waste it. The thing you worked hard for, that money. You wouldn't want to even get 99 cents worth from $1. You'll feel sad. So how tragic to waste this precious life that you worked unbelievably hard to get. So this leads us then to this very first one on in grade 1, thinking about death. Because it leads naturally on from this one. Given that this life is precious, that you work so hard to get it, what a tragedy to waste it. And then you think about impermanence and death, that it in fact will end. So this is talked about under three headings, 3 points to think about. The first one is that death is definite. The second one is that the time of death is not definite. And the third is what is important at the time of death is nothing other than the virtuous seeds in your mind. So let's just look at this, how to think about this. Because the way to contemplate these things is just to think about them, that's all. There's a certain kind of meditation that's called, analytical meditation. It's a fancy word for thinking. But thinking in a very structured, clear way. Like when you study your math or your whatever it is you're studying, you have to think about it in a clear, structured way. And that thinking is the way you make it experiential, isn't it? You first think about 1 and 1 is 2, and then that triggers the experience of it. Well, in this formal sense here, that's called analytical meditation. It's very simple. It's called thinking. And thinking is the method we use to work things through. It leads to the experience, to the experiential understanding of something. It's very reasonable. We just don't call it meditation, that's all. So the first thing to think about, to contemplate, to go over, is that death is definite. Now this sounds really obvious, and we're sort of thinking, come on, Buddha, don't be ridiculous, we know that. Give me something more intelligent to think about, please. But as I'm saying, what Buddha's saying is that we intellectually know it, there's no problem, but instinctively, emotionally, if we analyse, if we look at our life, if we look at the way we are, it's as if we don't think that. It's in fact that we actually think the opposite, instinctively. We believe we are permanent. It's like, as Lama Zopa says, we think we're a living person. We call ourselves a living person. And then we think of Auntie Jane in hospital who's dying, she's dying from cancer. So you think about just this one, it's very interesting. It shows how we see ourselves as permanent. When we think a dying person, it's a very vivid word, isn't it? Dying. Oh my God, she's dying. So then when you visit that person, that label is what dominates the whole relationship, isn't it? She's dying. Did you know she's dying? oh my God. And you talk in hushed tones to her. You don't talk about life. You don't talk about ordinary things. The person is a dying person. They could be looking just as fine as you, but they've got a disease, you know. So we have this very strong concept, this meaning we put into those words. But as Lama Zopa points out, he says, excuse me, living people die before dying people every day. And it's a fact. You just go check. It's a fact. In other words, just because we know a person has a disease, we call them dying. So we treat them totally differently. We think of them differently. We realize, in other words, what is in fact for all of us the same. That yes, indeed, they are dying, but honey, so are you. We're all dying. It really is, it's just a label, you know. It really is just a label. And if living people die before dying people, then clearly it is a pretty essenceless label because you don't even know. You think, you know, then you check how you feel. Well, I'm a living person. I'm not dying. What does that mean? It means I've got a tomorrow. It means and you think these words carefully, it means I believe, cross your fingers and hope for the best, I believe, we think, that I will be here tomorrow. So when we make our plans for tomorrow, just like that, it's like that expectation of that cake when you think about it in advance before you get down to Gales. You visualize the cake already, and because you want it to be there, you absolutely believe it will be there. You hear my point here? That's exactly how we are with our own life. We actually believe blindly that we will be here tomorrow. It sounds a joke to even say it, but you do your market research, and this is all this type of meditations are. They don't use that term, but this is the term we use in the West. It just means you go check among like 100 people, the people who died recently that they knew about, and ask how many expected to die. And I think you might find that the majority called themselves living people. They died in a car accident. They died in their sleep. They died just like that. They died, someone killed them. They weren't called dying persons. They believe, like you and me, that they're living, which means they believe they would have tomorrow. It sounds like a joke to us, and that proves that we grasp it ourselves as permanent. That it's insane. We think it's insane to think, I will die tomorrow. Forget about dying today. So we intellectually know we're going to die. But you check it, think about this, how you think. Death is a long way off, isn't it? Even if we're 60 and 70, getting close to 80 even, we're still kind of getting a bit closer. We do tend to get a bit closer then, if we're so lucky to live that long. We really feel death is nowhere near here. Death is not today. Death is always another day. So as Lama Zopa says, it's best to think, I will die today. And if you think about that, the day you die, it will be today, won't it? You think, it will be today. But we never think it's today. It's never going to be today. And you check, it's just an instinctive belief inside us. And this is coming from attachment, this strong attachment to this self, and therefore this powerful kind of imposing of this idea. An idea, that's all, that I'm permanent. Sort of, I won't die, you know. Even just the subtler impermanence of I'm not changing. This is why it's always a shock when we look in the mirror. See the double chins and the necks, you know, the double chins and the grey hairs and the wrinkles and everything. Or when someone else sees you as old, like one of my sisters, you know, she volunteers her time for some, you know, poor people, old people, whatever. And she was with one of them, and she was a little girl, and the mother said, "Oh, you're the closest she's got to a grandmother." Now, I mean, okay, my sister's old enough to be a grandmother. You can be a grandmother at 40, but you know, when you think grandmother, it's always an old person out there. You think your grandmother. And so it's a shock to think that you are that for someone else, you know. I mean, you all know what I'm saying. It takes us a lot of work to get used to the idea that we're getting, you know, fat and old, or wrinkled and old, you know. And slowly we kind of crack jokes about it, don't we? But it's sort of like always a surprise. Because we hold in the mind a view of ourselves, and we stay frozen in that one. And we think that's who I am. It's permanent. And then because of attachment, it's as scary as hell to think that this I, the one we're attached to now, this shape, you know, this this is the I we have now, that won't exist. So we definitely want to live in denial of that. We do not want to think that. Anything that we don't like to think, you can see it if a person in a relationship and everybody else can see that he's off sleeping around, but she can't see it. We can see this so often because you're living in denial. It's too painful to see the truth because you're attached to the opposite. So that's where we are. We're all living in denial of our own impermanence. So I'm mixing up the first and the second ones here, like the time of death is uncertain, because we could die today. The first one is simply the fact that you will die. It's a very practical thing, that you are in fact a dying person. As Lama Zopa says, it's just a question of time. A dying person. From the second you were conceived, you're already a dying person. It's just a question of time. So getting used to that idea that you're this moving feast. You're this you're this what do they call? You're this they say movable feast, but that's the wrong term here. You're changing every second, every second, every second, meaning you're heading towards death. That's a good way to think, and you know that feeling. You know that very well when you've got an appointment, when you've got the flight to catch, when you have your dentist, when you've got your driving test. It's in the diary, it's right your date book is right there, and you're moving towards it. You've got a vivid sense of getting closer to it. You check the clock, you check the watch, you check the date. Monday, 2 more days to go. Wednesday, only 1 day to go. You understand? You have a vivid sense of this finite thing going to happen. And you have a sense of, as you get closer, there's then a sense of urgency. So you've got to get some stuff done before you get there. But when it comes to death, we don't think this way. It's like somewhere in the future. And it's as if, a good example for my mind is if, when you're driving somewhere, it's the same as a deadline. As you're driving, you've got a constant sense of moving towards that place, haven't you? You drive from here into Santa Cruz. You've got a vivid sense, even just the few minutes it takes. You've got 20 minutes, then you've got 10, then you've got 5. You see the signs. You get to see the street signs. You know you're getting closer. And finally it's there. You're there. You have a vivid sense of moving towards something, don't you? We don't think that about life, do we? We don't have a vivid sense of moving towards death. Who wants to think this way? It sounds depressing. But it's a fact. We are. So the scary part, of course, is in the second one, you don't know where it is. So it's like you're driving on, you have no clue where Santa Cruz is. It could be 200 miles, or it could be 10 miles. It could be 1. So you've got to keep your eyes really open. You don't know when it will be. That's the point. So to even have a sense that death is definite, and that because you've thought about how precious this life is, you have a sense of urgency of not wanting to waste it. And now that's increased by doing this. That's the point. That's Atisha's agenda here. To increase your sense of urgency, not to waste this life, because you are definitely impermanent. You will definitely die. Everything that comes into being will die. It's the one certainty. And that's the meaning actually of what they call subtle impermanence, that you can't separate birth and death. You can't separate cause and you can't separate coming into being and going out of being. There's a bit of a space in between, but as soon as you come in, anything comes into being, the certainty is that it will go out of being. But that's what we live in denial of. We want to force it to stay alive forever. And it's a clear fantasy because the very nature of existence, the very nature of how everything is that they're impermanent. So everything that comes into being has to finish. And we can see this in our lives. The things we're attached to, we cannot bear the thought that they will go. The relationship, the person, that thing, whatever it is, it's unbearable for us. So because of attachment, you can see, we see things as permanent because it's the only way we can bear. And so we frantically try to make it permanent. But this is what's so insane. If something fundamentally in its nature is a certain thing, you cannot make it something different. So we live in this frantic kind of fantasy of trying to make something permanent that isn't possible to make permanent. So the best thing is to get in touch with reality. We're scared of that. We're scared of death. We're scared of that relationship changing. We're scared of that house going. We're scared of losing the things we're attached to. So we can't bear to think about it. So we live in the belief that it won't. So we're setting ourselves up for incredible disaster, aren't we? It's really clear. Everything that comes into being will die. So the way to think about this in daily life is every time you see the ant, every time you read the obituaries, every time you read anything, instead of just the gossip mind, oh, look at that dead thing, or, oh, Frank Sinatra died, wow, far out, and you read all the news and what they say all about him, but just gossip. Go right there. Look, death is definite. Little wake-up call. That'll be me. You remind yourself. You take it back to yourself. You remind yourself. It keeps you alert, you know. So then, of course, then the one of death is, the time of death is uncertain. This really gets you down to the crucial point, which really keeps you on the alert. Because even though we think that we're permanent, we still sort of know we're going to die. And we know it's sometime, but as I said, it's always in the future. So it's like for us, instead of driving towards that thing which is very much there, and you know where it is, you don't even know where it is. So it could come at any time. And that's really scary. You've got to keep your eyes wide open if you don't know where Santa Cruz is. Really and truly, no one knows. It could be 1,000 miles or it could be 1. So especially if Santa Cruz is some horrible place and you don't want to go there, like death, let's say. If it could be in a mile, you know, every time you stop for a cup of tea and you realise you're not there yet, oh, what a relief. Phew, still got another day. Aren't I fortunate? Another mile to go, you know. Another mile. You keep going every minute. So in other words, every morning you wake up. This is the way to think about it. Like I said, you wake up in the morning. Wow, it's amazing. I didn't die. It's not a joke. Again, do your market research. Lots of people who believe, like you, that they're permanent and living people won't wake up in the morning, will be dead, will wake up in another realm, as Lama Zopa puts it. So every morning you wake up, you've still got gas in your tank. Because, you know, everything is finite and everything is amount of energy you put in. So karma, like vegetable seeds, you get a certain number of seeds, a certain number of vegetables, a certain amount of karma, a certain result. So life, the length of your life, again, remember karma is the main cause of everything. So the length of your life is determined by the amount of non-killing karma, mostly, in the past life that you've put into your gas tank, which is what is still keeping us alive right now. What causes our breath to go out yet again now is still the morality karma in our gas tank. But every minute we're breathing out and every day we're living, that gas tank is running out. And eventually it will stop and we will stop breathing. Right there, you know. That's it. So, like for us now, it's like we're driving on a road to Santa Cruz. But Santa Cruz keeps moving as we drive. That's how we think about death. You know you're heading towards it, but it's always moving forward. That's how we think. We don't have a sense of finite. It's there somewhere, you know. We have a sense, oh, it'll come one day, and it will never be today. That's the denial we're living in. Well, clearly we can see, intellectually, it's not true. It's not reasonable. It's irrational. But we believe in this as the truth. No one ever questions this. We don't think like this. And we think that, you see, we think also, another thing, we think the main cause of health, the main cause of life is health. So I remember reading about this one woman, some famous lady, an American who was, whatever, whoever name, I can't even think of her name. And she was, you could see from just reading about it, she was very beautiful. And she had all these lovers in the past, famous people like English royalty and things. She was some American politician woman, some famous person. I can't think of her name. And so she was living there, she is 70-something. And she's very beautiful. You can see she really takes care of her health. And she swims every day. So you can see that she's doing this to keep healthy so she can live long. Well, she died swimming. I mean, it's sort of normal. But you think of it and you imagine how she was feeling, and it's so kind of humbling. Because, you know, you don't think of death as something other than your health. Because the point is, all you've got to do is look at life and you realise, again, you do your market research, young people die. Healthy people die for seemingly no cause. They just stop breathing. But we don't factor this into all our research and our marketing things and all our, you know, causes of death. We just think it's an accident somehow. Somehow it shouldn't happen. So we keep thinking, well, if I keep being healthy, I'll keep living long. I always think of Rupert Murdoch. You know, he's a super famous guy. He's 80-something, got his brand new, or fairly new, gorgeous wife and new little babies and all kind of got a lease of life and wearing nice clothes again and goes, does yoga. And he's trying to keep himself alive still. He knows he's going to die. He's preparing for his death. But in his mind, if he's like the rest of us, he's really trying to push that forward, you know, by being healthy. Trying to just not want to think about death. I'm reading recently as someone else, Sumner Redstone, another famous rich guy, you know. I'm not trying to be personal about these people, but it's like it's grist for the mill when you read. You imagine how they're thinking. They could live till they're 104, like that poor other old lady, the one who's in New York, and who's now what's her name? What's the name? That famous family. That's right. She's 104, you know. Anyway, whatever. But you just... So the thing is, you see, all life happens. But all we're doing here is talking about a different way of interpreting it. So we're using Buddha's way of interpreting. So here it's the one, every time you read about these things, it's a wake-up call, you know. And you remind yourself again and again, Robina, you could die today. And it's such a powerful one, that, because you know, right, if you were going to die today, can you imagine? You'd really put yourself together. You'd really sort yourself out, get rid of your problems, and forgive all, in your mind even, forgive all the people you're so angry with. Let go of all the garbage so you can die a happy death. You know, you wouldn't waste your time. You wouldn't waste your time being miserable and angry and ugly and all the rubbish if you knew you're going to die today. Really, it's true. A wonderful example from my mind, I use for myself, is the idea of going on a vacation. So I went to this place in Puerto Rico 2 years ago. I do sometimes what I call an editing retreat, and I go for a month or so, 2 months, and edit books, right? So this one I was doing was in, and it was January, so it's cold, you know. And I wanted to go to the beach. I liked the beach. I needed a sort of a break, and I wanted also to have time to do this book. And I had about 9 weeks exactly, I know. And I had this gorgeous place. Someone offered me part of it. And this on the beach, on the south coast of Puerto Rico, right on the sea, in this pink apartment buildings, very lovely crescent beach, you know. The beach is like 1 minute walk. You can hear the pounding ocean, which I like. The sky's blue every day, a bit of rain, you know. Big resort, and walk along the beach. You go to the supermarket and the restaurants. This lovely, lovely place. So it was, you know, it was perfect and it was gorgeous. And I had this 9 weeks. So the 9 weeks was definite. I went to Rita, the agent lady. She gave me the key. And so the agreement was on February the 19th, or whatever day it was, I can't remember, when I had to fly to Boston, where it was 20 below. I remember that. And I mean, that was the day I had to turn back the key, you know, turn in the key. So it was an agreement. Yes, you can read, you can come and stay. You can stay for 9 weeks. You know, I give her the money, she gives me the key. So that's a perfect example. It's a pleasing experience, you know, the analogy for this life, but it's got a deadline. It's got a date. It's got a, you know, what do you call it? Use by date. Now, so you imagine if I'd forgotten that, right? And you're all attached to this place, and it was lovely. You're attached to it every day, which is how we are with life. And you get caught up in all the dramas and the lovely cushions, and then there's this, and they're my cushions, and it's my bed, and it's my beach, and it's my house, and then the next door neighbours, and you sue them, and all this kind of, because you see it as permanent, right? Can you imagine the drama on the 5th February the 19th, and Rita comes, Robina, time to go. I would, of course, be freaked out, right? I would have made no plans for where to go after the February the 19th, because I thought this was permanent, meaning I've created no good karma. I've used up all this, caught up in the bubble, seeing it as permanent, believing it's mine, all attached to it, looking at it every day. And then, of course, because you get lazy and can't be bothered, and you see all the nice sea out there, you see all the good things you could do, but you can't be bothered. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. You know, I'll do it tomorrow. I tell you, because I had those days, and I was counting each day on the calendar, and it was sort of this feeling. I liked it. I wanted to be there, you know, doing my work, but also having fun. My little pink sarong. I wore my pink sarong. Working, swimming, editing my pink sarong. People knew I was a nun still, though. They went like this to me. I couldn't escape. But it was so lovely for me, because I'd go out in the clean, lovely ocean every day and lie on the sea and do some of my prayers and think about the meaning of things, you know, because you have time. I didn't have to talk to anybody. It was very nice. I mean, I like talking to people. It was just a different experience. It was like a retreat. And it was really pleasing. And because I knew I only had 9 weeks, I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to go to the beach every day. I wanted to use the opportunity when it arose. Whereas you look at one of our worst crimes in our lives is we put things off. We put things off. We procrastinate. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And they say one of the worst sufferings at death is the regrets that you have for the things you didn't do, for the time wasted, because we think it's permanent. So you would, of course, if I forgot, you know, that there was a deadline on it. And I was fortunate. I had a date. It was February the 19th. But you imagine if Rita had said, sure, Robina, you can come and stay here on condition that I can come any day I like from this second forward to take the key back. Now, you really wouldn't even want to sleep, would you? It could be tomorrow she'd come. Oh, my God. But another day she didn't come. Now, shall I say, tell you even at 6 p.m. I can come. I'll come if I need the key at 6 p.m. from today onwards. You would use every minute of that opportunity, wouldn't you? And then at 6 p.m. comes, you go, oh, amazing. She hasn't come yet. I've got another whole day. Aren't I lucky? I'm not kidding, but that's the way to lead your life. If you think about how precious it is and how hard you work to get it, and you think about how it's a thing that's wearing out, you're using it up every time you have it. So then you have a real sense of urgency. And this is not like panic. It's a healthy sense of urgency. It's like you have on a vacation. So the vacation one's a great example. It can be the most beautiful place. You do enjoy it. But because, this is really the good point, because you're not attached to it really deeply, you kind of can let go of it. You know it's impermanent. So you know at some point you've got to say goodbye. So you can't afford to start grasping and have mental breakdowns about the pillows and the this and the that and sort of it's mine, which we think is meaning forever. So you don't have the suffering when you leave it. You're already knowing it's impermanent. It's a really good example. So like we're on a vacation here, you know, in this body, in this life. It's temporary. But this is the thing. We see the way the delusions are. We see it as permanent. We remember nothing else. We can't even visualize anything in the future. This is it, you know. So no wonder the dramas and the suffering and the pain. Look at it. And the thing about the vacation example too is you enjoy it all the more because it's impermanent. This is interesting. We tend to think, oh, well, if it's all going to change, why bother? Just give up. Who cares? Why make your house lovely? You could die tomorrow. That's no logic at all. That assumes that there's an alternative, which is that it's permanent. I enjoyed that vacation. And it was much lighter because it's not yours and it's not permanent. You enjoy it given that it's impermanent. You enjoy it because it's impermanent. That's how we should live our life, you know. Makes sense. Then you really keep on track. You won't get too attached. You won't get too angry. You won't get too freaked out. You'll just stay on track, sowing more virtuous seeds. So in other words, planning for where I was going to stay after February the 19th. So you leave this life, you get another one all sorted out already. I know it sounds almost ridiculous because we don't think of karma this way. Nobody thinks of it as something you can guarantee. But if you can say you know the laws of something, like carpentry, like gardening, you can be certain, given the laws of reality, that you'll get a decent table, you'll get a decent microphone, you'll get a decent garden. We have that certainty because we understand the laws. Well, this is how Buddha talks about karma. There's certainty about it. If you do this, you'll get that. It's not hippy-trippy. It's not mystical. It's not up to God. It is something that's knowable. It's not a mystery. I remember talking to some Catholic nuns, and I kept asking questions, you know, about, I like talking about these things. What about this and what about that? They said, oh, we don't know. I said, don't you want to know? Oh, no, they said. We want it to be a mystery. That's their thing, you know. Well, it's not the Buddhist one. And having this approach is sort of, you know, if you, like I said before, see the relationship. If you know the laws of carpentry, you can do it with a good mind, with a happy mind, and each step of the way you can be certain, can't you? You can do it with certainty. Same with karma. No need to have fear. No reason to be panic-stricken. If you know the laws of karma, and you know the laws of morality, then it will be certain that you will get that result. So, you know, have confidence. It's up to you. You're the boss, not God, not someone else, which is what we're so used to thinking. Of course there's no certainty if you think it's up to God. And of course there's no certainty if you think it's up to your parents. So of course we have to think about these things. Of course we do. This is the way to think, you know. So the first one is the death is definite. To think that I am a dying person, that to say that I'm a living person is just misleading you. You are dying. It's a fact. You can't argue with it. It's just a question of time, that's all. So it's a kind of a good way to think. It's more dynamic. Whereas you think you're a living person, it's like, certainly it's permanent. You think it's real, definite, forever. I'm young. I'm healthy. Of course I'm not dying, we'll say. And then we think of the time of death as uncertain. Then you immediately see that young people and healthy people die. Babies die. But we don't like to think that. We live in denial. We think that's an accident. So the time of death is uncertain. That's the one that really gets you galvanized, you know. The third one is the point. So given, you know, you've got to take all these givens. Given that this mind of ours is a continuity that goes back before conception and will continue after death, and given every single thing we say, do and think leaves a seed in the mind that will ripen as our future experiences, and given that negative seeds ripen as suffering and positive seeds ripen as happiness. And given that you do want happiness and don't want suffering, then it's a logical conclusion, isn't it? It follows that at the time of death, at that moment, there is only one thing that is of any use to you. Your beautiful house, your reputation, the beach, your money, your body, your family, your loved ones, your possessions. All the things you've spent your life thinking are what are most important, suddenly are literally gone like a dream. There's no benefit. All the work of putting all the money in the bank and all the health, all these things is gone like a dream. It's gone, finished. It's of no benefit. It's of no use to you. It doesn't help you at that moment. It's like spending your life earning all the, thinking certain thing is money, working for it, getting all these bits of paper, building them all up, millions in the bank, and then you discover when you go to spend it that it's not money at all. Someone's cheated you. It's like a terrible waste. You thought it was so important. You thought it was the meaning of life. You thought it was everything. You thought it was that. You spent your life working, counting up all these bits of paper, counting all those things, and then you go to spend it, and it's essenceless. It's nothing. I mean, what a tragic waste. Spending all your life thinking the body is the most important, health is the most important, the family is the most important. We think these things, almost like a mantra. Health and family, we say, are what life are all about. Well, if your life finishes at death, it's true, and there's nothing more, then you're right, it's true. For that period, it is true. But if your mind continues, then it's not true. If, after all the work of saving up the dollars, the point comes when you start to spend it, and if it's not dollars, it's just empty paper, then it's essenceless. It wasn't true. So Buddha's not saying necessarily give up your family, give up your wealth, give up your health. He's just saying see it differently. Like the vacation, like that house in Puerto Rico. See it differently. If I think it's mine and it'll be there forever, it's permanent, and keep making it more beautiful so I can enjoy it every day, it's the most important thing, then I'm going to be in big trouble when I've got to leave. But if I see it for what it is, which is something that I've got, then don't use it to do good things. Use your family to practice patience and humility and kindness, not just attachment and anger. And have affection, have love, have pleasure, but give something in return. Practice kindness, practice patience, practice compassion, practice giving. You're using them as grist for the mill for you to develop good seeds. Use your money for other things besides yourself. Give to others. Use it for something useful. So while you're enjoying the fruits of your past karma, you're sowing good seeds that will bring your future one. It's just common sense if we're taking karma as a basis, which is the view we've got here, the way to think. And, of course, you think about impermanence every day, and you practice, and you purify your negative karma. So when the time of death comes, the dollars in the bank, the good karmic seeds, I'm being very practical about it, are there for you. You've finished the old thing. Goodbye family, goodbye loved ones, goodbye reputation, goodbye body, goodbye house, goodbye all that dream that you had in the last 60, 70, 40, 20 years, whatever. Now you can carry on. Your mind will continue, and virtuous seeds will ripen, and the mind will take another birth, a decent birth, where you have another family and a decent family. You get money and get good health and good wealth, so you can continue practicing your spiritual path. Because the point of life, in Buddhist terms, isn't the things, it's the virtue you create, because that's what brings you the good things, and their purpose is to help you create more virtue until eventually you've achieved your own perfection. You've become who you really are. So it's a skillful means, Then you die with a happy mind. You're not surprised when Rita comes for the key. You expected it. You're ready for it. You've got yourself all sorted out for the next place. Then you die with a happy mind. Very practical. Practical. Not esoteric. Not mystical, which is how we're so used to thinking about religion. About these types of things. See, that's what's so interesting about, the evolution of scientific approach. We can see it came out as a reaction to the extreme kind of fundamentalism maybe of the, the medieval times, the Christian, isn't it? And so this materialism came out of that, and this rational thing, this thing of rationality came out of all that. But what's interesting, that rationality has always been the Buddhist one, even though it's always been with religion too. So it's a shock for us to think that you have the scientific approach, which is the rational one, along with religion, because we've always assumed religion is not rational. It's become so degenerate, maybe. So then we threw the baby out with the bathwater and we got the materialist one. But the Buddhist one, these two have sit very comfortably together. They're being rational, proving, validating, and at the same time, the religious packaging, you know. It's kind of interesting. That is the Buddhist one. So in the same way that we think science is rational, but believing in God is not, then the Buddhist would say having, you know, confidence in the law of karma, which is about future life, is rational. You use a scientific approach to it, but it doesn't just mean about physical things. You can prove things, Buddha says, first intellectually and then through your own experience. And if you can't prove it, then it doesn't exist. Then it's wrong. Then you reject. Fine. Perfect. Karma, Buddha says, is a law. No one manipulates it. It's a natural law that occurs in minds. It's just how it is. So then it's a law that can be learned. It's a knowable thing. Buddha says that which exists is that which is knowable. If it can't be known by mind, it doesn't exist, Buddha says. There's nothing that mind can't finally cognize that exists. That which exists, Buddha says, is that which can be known by mind. These are axiomatic. It's a very interesting approach. So let's talk just briefly about the process of death, what occurs at death, how we die. This is according to Tantra. It's according to the esoteric teachings. And it's described in terms of, in 8 stages. Listen, I've got this in my computer, this document. Pardon? Oh, you've got it here. I've got a, thanks. I've got it, is it, oh, that one, yeah. I see that one. Oh, yeah. Have people got this book or not? Just you? Some of you got it in the bookstore. Okay. It's, huh? Sure, you can now. That's okay. You can be ready now. You can get it. But there's that book. But if you've got, you know, it's not the details. That book, you've got the book is it's brief meditations and all this. But this has got more detail in it too. This is helpful. Yeah, page 17. You'll see it there. There's just various. Death is described in 8. You can get this book. Sorry, yeah. And I've got also notes on my computer. Lots of other things to read as well. If you wanted that, I can email it all to you after. You know, when you go home, you can have that. If you'd like to do that, get a list together. Give Betty your email. It's a big document, like 50, 60 pages, with just lots of other teachings and talks about the mind, stuff of mind and other people, Lama Zopa, but also the death process and those 10 non-virtuous actions, a bunch of stuff together. Yeah? If you'd like it, just give your email to Betty, and you can get it when you get home. So, okay. The death is described in terms of 8 stages. Right? 8 stages. So first of all, what's interesting about death, it's taught. This is from Tantra, so it's in the context of this explanation of the subtler physical energies. You know, like I said about the Tibetan doctor feeling your pulses. The Tibetan medicine is based on the same model, you know, the same talking. So basically, also, what's interesting is the death process in the way it's described here, this dissolution, as they call it, of the grosser level of energy and then the more subtle and then all the way to the very subtle. It's exactly the same process that occurs at sleep. Exactly the same process that occurs when you go to sleep every time. In other words, you know what sleep is you're wide awake and then gradually this is how they say it, all the energies absorb and you go into unconsciousness, don't you? And then you wake up again. Well, this process is described in detail in this way here. And death is exactly the same, but just more radical. In other words, when you wake up in the same body, don't you? But when you die, you wake up in another body. The consciousness takes another body. But the process is described exactly the same. So the first, it's described in the context of the senses. First of all, the gross senses ceasing, the different levels of our sensory experience gradually ceasing, and then different levels of our mental experience gradually ceasing, and the different stages of the elements ceasing. So each of these, various of these occur at each of the 8 stages. So physically, the first of the 8 stages, the earth element, as they say, which gives the strength and everything to the body, the strength. So that ceases to function. Now, you know the experience of when you're very tired, your body feels like lead, doesn't it? That's the sign of the earth element ceasing to function. This occurs at the time of death. The sense that occurs first ceases to function is the I consciousness. Now this is really something we all have the experience of. You're sitting there talking to a friend and you're struggling against sleep. We all have had that. And your eyes, you just can't keep them open, can you? It's a real struggle. But even if your eyes are open, you check this, you can't see. You can't hold all that information sharply and clearly. Your mind is kind of fuzzy and dazed, isn't it? You understand that experience? That's because your eye, the capacity of your eye consciousness is ceasing to function. It's like, you know, and like sleep is this very compelling thing that's hard to resist, isn't it, when you're really tired? Everything's going in. And that's how they describe the process, you know? It's very interesting. And then at the same stage, a particular capacity of your mind, and the way they describe it is, it's the capacity of the mind to, they call it the mirror-like wisdom. You'll see this, there's all these quaint phrases. But it's the capacity to hold a lot of information through the senses. You just don't, it's ceasing to function. You know, and also in your mind you can't hold much information at all, right? When you're beginning to go to sleep. They also say in each of these stages there's a subtle kind of sign or indicator that only really when you begin to become a great meditator you even notice this. I mean, we don't notice it when we go to sleep or when we faint, but this occurs every time. This subtle sign, they say it's like a mirage. And what do you think of a mirage? It's the interplay between the earth element and the water, isn't it? And the next one now is the water element. So now the water element ceases, you know, the liquids in your body dry up. You know when you wake up in the morning, your eyes are dry, your tongue is dry, and you wanted something to drink. The water element kind of dissolves, ceases to function. So the sense in this case is the ears, and you check what's happening when you're listening to your friend. You're talking, you're struggling against sleep. You missed that last 30 seconds. You missed that last 10 seconds. You just did not hear it, did you? You understand? It's true. It's exactly what happens, isn't it? I've got my prayers on my iPod, okay? I have all my different practices, and I've got my little, you know, little baby iPod, those little skinny, little tiny ones, you know, those ones that call... Not the Nano. Shuffle. I've got a little shuffle. Miniature, they're gorgeous. And I have all my prayers recited, and I usually walk around doing my prayers. And sometimes when I'm lying down before I go to sleep, I have it on, you know. Or even... And then, of course, I'll nod off for a second, and there was total silence. It was quite loud. But of course, it was totally silent for that short moment because your ear consciousness ceased. I mean, it's sort of obvious. We know these things, but it's interesting because this is sort of how they talk, you know. The capacity of your consciousness in dependence upon that part of your body. This is the point. They talk about the consciousness coursing through this 72,000 subtle channels connected to the air energy. The airs in the channels are why the mind can function. They talk about the mind riding on the winds are the airs. So these airs are gradually leaving all these outer channels and moving into the central one. And so what happens when your ear consciousness ceases, whether you go deaf or just temporarily deaf during sleep, that wind energy is absorbing into the central channel. All the wind energies are coming into the central channel. They talk about it in great subtlety and detail. I'm just being very broad here. And so your capacity of your consciousness, that part of your consciousness that's connected to that particular wind, then obviously has nothing to ride on, so it has no physical basis, so it ceases. This is what deafness is. Blindness. Your eyes can be wide open, but the wind energies, the way they'd say it is the Tibetan doctors would talk this way too, roughly. The wind energies that are connected to the consciousness that functions through the eyeball cease. So there's nowhere for the eye consciousness to hold on to. So the eyeball is there, but it doesn't function. So the eye consciousness ceases at the first stage. Now the ear consciousness ceases. And the capacity. So first of all, okay, it's the sense, which is your ear consciousness. The what do you call it? The element is the liquid element, the water element. All the liquids in your body, the sperm, the blood, the spit, dries up. The capacity of your mind here they call it the what's it called? The wisdom. It's the capacity of the mind to distinguish between pleasant, painful, and neutral feelings. So when you're wide awake, that's very vivid, isn't it? But here now, who cares? Even when you're tired, who cares? Delicious smell, ugly smell. It's just the mind doesn't care. And it kind of merges. There's the inability to distinguish so clearly between these different experiences. And the internal sign is this subtle appearance of like smoke. And so if you think about that, the interplay of water element and the next one, which is fire element. It's like steam, really, isn't it? It's like steamy. Then the next one is your fire element that dissolves. So this is, it's the heat in the body. Is it what allows digestion and things, isn't it? Your nose, smell, ceases to function. The capacity of the mind now to even distinguish between friend, enemy, and stranger. You're dying, there you are dying, and there's ugly old Uncle Fred over there, and this side, your favourite auntie, and you haven't got a clue. You're losing the plot, basically. Gradually, everything is absorbing inwards. All this vivid world that's full of concepts and ideas and things and the music you like and the people and this vivid good and bad and up and down and this and that, this world that our concepts have created for us is deconstructing. You're there. The people are there. The things are all there. But the awareness is going in, dissolving, inexorably going in. And the internal sign now, this subtle sign that occurs, they say it's like fireflies or sparks. And if you think of that, the interplay of fire and air, which is the next one, sparks. Then finally now, the tactile consciousness and the taste consciousness cease. This tongue, as one Lama put it, that spent its life gossiping is now useless. It sort of goes all short and hard and blue at the root. Or something small and useless. The capacity to even know now who you are. Finished. No concept, no idea. Lost the plot completely. And finally, the air element, which already gradually has been going longer and longer out and less in, now finally goes out and no longer goes in. So as far as the West is concerned, you're now ready for the body bag, isn't it? But you're not dead yet. This is just the gross level of your being. Physical, the gross conceptual level. All the different states of mind, like all the little bricks that keep the building up. All the different conceptual states of mind and all the sensory consciousness, this has ceased. The body, effectively, and the senses and the concepts that exist in dependence upon the brain and the body. These have stopped functioning. They've kind of subsumed down to the subtler level now. So now your subtle consciousness is existing, which is sort of like you could be there dead, but you're still in the body. And so for this reason, Buddhists would say, Tibetan Buddhists certainly, you don't disturb the body for at least 2 days. And you treat the person with great respect. It's like, this is like a shrine room. You'd never just sit there gossiping and rabbiting on, even while the person's dying, looking like they're not aware of what's going on, because it's so totally disturbing for their mind. And because death is there, they're going through the death process, then everything you do in that room should be for their benefit, to make it as conducive as possible for them to have a happy, peaceful death. And if they're Buddhists, you'd have Buddhist prayers on, Buddhist people doing Buddhist things, you'd have CDs of teachings maybe, you'd have stuff that's helpful for that person's mind, to help their mind, Everything would be to help their mind die peacefully, die well. And even when the person looks like they're dead, you wouldn't touch their body for at least 2 days. They say the subtle consciousness is there still. And in other words, it could be, really the experience could be like a person's in a coma, except it's a very deep coma because there's no breath. But their mind is still there, and there can be awareness. You know, you have the experience sometimes, don't you? When you go to the dream mind, because this is exactly the same. The gross wake-up mind is that one, and then that ceases, you go to the dream mind. And so at this point, it's like you're in a dream. That same type of experience, it could be like that. So, you know, that's like a coma, you know. And I remember one experience during one retreat I did, where I'd go to sleep in the afternoon for a couple of hours, you know, after lunch. It was in India. But then I was vividly dreaming. And I was vividly aware at the same time of everything going on outside me. Dreaming at the same time stuff going on outside. It could be like that for this dying person. So they'd be totally disturbed by all hanging about, all moaning and crying, or all gossiping and talking about them, and, you know, in their presence. It's awful. You do not do this, you know. Great respect for that person. Quiet, peaceful. Anything that's there, if they're Buddhist, let's say, would be conducive to them dying peacefully, dying well, even while they're still now like stop breathing. The mind is still there. And it continues to go through the process of becoming more subtle, more subtle, more subtle. So they describe that in great detail. There's one book called Death, Birth and Intermediate State. Death, intermediate state and rebirth. That's right. And he goes into great detail there. It's quite kind of esoteric, but it's interesting, of all the different states of mind, what dissolves when, how, and all that, you know. It's very interesting. Death, intermediate state and rebirth. So now the fifth stage, different levels of subtle conceptuality ceases. But the main thing is, they say, there's like this vision. The vision is like this vast white sky. And they talk about the white... It's not saying it in here. Don't know why. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's like white... They talk about white and red in Tantra, in the subtle, like in yoga, in Tibetan medicine. They talk about this white and red subtle liquid energies that the human bodies have. The white kundalini, they call it, the red kundalini. And the white kundalini, they call it, is a subtle white level, the gross level of which is the sperm of the male, but which we all have in these channels. And then the red one is the gross level, which is the red blood of the female, but which we all have in these channels. And that there's this subtler one, the right and red, the subtler level of these energies, roughly speaking, I'm saying. And the white one is existing at the crown. And when it goes down, it causes this white vision, they talk. And then the red one, next stage, the red one comes up. Heat rises. So this is the basis of all the pleasure and the bliss in the body, and this is the basis of all the heat in the body. So the red one, the sixth sign, the red one comes up. So the white one comes down, melts down, and comes to the heart chakra they talk about. None of that's in here, but it doesn't matter. This is roughly. The red one comes up, and then they kind of encompass what they call the clear light consciousness, this subtle seed they talk about, right at the heart chakra, in the central channel, where all gradually, all the winds, all the energies, all the levels of mind are all absorbing, subsuming down to here, right to here, everything coming to here. Then the next one they call the black, like a vision of dark. These two kind of join. What do they say here? Red. All the winds dissolve in the heart. So there's just dark. And then finally, that's interesting. Finally, when these two open up somehow, when the red one continues then to go down, where's it coming from? Up. Comes up and then comes out. Eventually, the sign of death, when the mind has actually left the body, is when the red one comes, and they say there's this sort of little subtle kind of pink thing that comes out the nostril, because these channels are connected, two side channels are connected to the two nostrils. And then the white one goes on down the central channel and exits through the sex organ. They say these are the sign that finally the consciousness, when the clear light consciousness is awakened and the consciousness now leaves the body. This is how they say. So it's clear light consciousness. After the seventh one, then the clear light consciousness comes. It's the subtlest level of your mind. beyond which it can't be subtler. They call this even indestructible consciousness. And so eventually when it does leave the body, and it can be 2 days later, as I'm saying, these two things occur. And then the consciousness, by the time you stop breathing, in fact, already the karma is determined what life you're going to have. Because before you even stop breathing, as you're going through the death process, there's a very extra powerful level of attachment, of very strong grasping, ripens. And that activates the karmic seed that will be the one that will throw your consciousness into the next life. So generally speaking, you know, if you've led your life in a regular way and done the usual negative things and harmed others and never questioned things and just, you know, followed your depression, your anxiety and kill the roaches and kill the rats and just, you know, with all the different things we do without thinking and looking at our motivation, realizing it's mainly attachment or whatever, you know, pride and these different things. Not necessarily talking about being Hitler here. Ordinary people. Just followed it all on autopilot, you know, and not checked on things, not thought about impermanence, not tried to better yourself. Then, of course, when death comes, like I'm saying, you know, Rita comes and gets the key, it's scary as hell. You don't want to leave. You've never thought of it as impermanent. It's scary, and you've never practiced. So then, obviously, the negative tendencies are most prevalent. So that's going to ripen very strong. That grasping will activate very strongly those negative seeds. So one of those strong karmic seeds will ripen, let's say the killing one. Will then throw your consciousness on autopilot, and eventually when the consciousness does leave the body, it goes into this intermediate state, which I'll talk about now. And then if it's virtuous karma that ripens, if you have thought about something and you have tried to change your life and you have purified the negative karma and you have tried to be useful to others and develop morality and have thought about impermanence, then when Rita comes for the key, it won't be surprising. Hi, Rita, here it is, darling. And you go off and you're all ready for the next one. No problem. Then you die with a happy mind. They say that death is a very blissful experience when you die well. Very pleasing. Very blissful experience, literally. So when the grasping ripens before you stop breathing, that activates the virtuous, the morality karma, which then becomes the one. And so already that causes you to have very pleasing experiences. The negative one causes you to have nightmarish experiences. Like they say, you have visions of your future life and it's very terrifying. People you see who die very badly, freaking out in a state of fear and panic, you know. It's an indication their next life won't be very nice. Not punishment, it's just something that happens, you know. It's organic, it's natural. So this is why for ourselves, of course, to practice so we die well, but to help others die well is the most precious gift, which is why hospice work is so amazing. To help someone die well is amazing. And often we think, oh, it's best if you just die overnight so I don't know about it. Well, Buddhism would disagree, say it's really good you get some notice, because then you can prepare. It's very practical. Really good if you get sick and then you die slowly. That's much better than dying overnight because you don't do anything about it. You don't prepare. And we all know if you have to do anything well, you should prepare for it. Well, we want to die well, please, and have a decent life. Prepare for the future life. So it's good to get notice. It's the biggest wake-up call of all. If we can't give ourselves our own wake-up call by meditating on death and impermanence, like we've talked, so that you are ready for death, and at least it's helpful if we get cancer. I'm not kidding now. Or get sick. So you can then think about death because now it's true for you. How fortunate. Best thing that can happen to us. Not joking. So to help others die well is so precious. One of the best things. You can do anything good for a person in their life, do it before they die. Best. Because they've used up this life. This life's finished now. Get them ready for the new one. Get them on, keep them on track, you know. Help them practice morality, help them die with a happy mind, let go, help them sort out their problems, die with a happy mind. So amazing. It's time for lunch. So we can discuss this after lunch, or you can discuss this. Well, no need to discuss this part. Why don't you discuss the other one? Time, you know, the 3 points. Death is definite, time of death is uncertain, and how morality and the virtuous karmic seeds are the only thing that can help you when you die. Just to think about that in a practical way. Talk about that. And then think about your lunch in a different way. Think of it as oceans of nectar in the sky, oceans of nectar on the tables, doesn't matter. Oceans of food, the nature of bliss, blessed by the energy of all the holy beings, Om Ahung, Om Ahung, Om Ahung, which you happily offer. Just think, you know, all the Buddhas, all the holy beings, and all the suffering sentient beings, giving them everything they need. Take away all their suffering. Just the food, you know, just this. Thinking, be happy to do this. Marvellous. and think of them experiencing the pleasure of having it. Lama Sangi Lama Che Dejan Lama Gedun Te Kungi Jepo Lama Te Lama Namla Che Pabu. And again, just thinking, these seeds we planted, this discussion this morning, 2-3 hours, all these seeds have gone in, more food for thought. Take this stuff away. Think about it. Make it meaningful for ourselves. Put it into practice if it feels right. And may all these seeds we planted develop, ripen as our own marvellous potential, our own Buddhahood, for the sake of every single suffering sentient being. Okay. So have your discussion on death and impermanence. Well, the Guru one too. Discuss that one if you like. If you'd like. Take one or the other, or take both, and go into them, And I'll maybe then talk about this other meditation. Bring your books if you like. The Lama Yeshe book. I'll bring that one. We can talk about the Compassion Buddha a bit this afternoon. And then tonight, actually, you see, tomorrow, Tuesday evening, I think, Khenzo Rinpoche is going to be giving refuge for some people outside who wanted it. And so they've requested him to give that, and so he can give it here. And maybe it's soon for some of you, but if some of you wanted to renew your refuge or to take it for the first time, then we'll talk about that tonight. It might be too soon, but it doesn't matter. There's always opportunities in the future. But it's an opportunity for tomorrow. And we'll talk about that tonight. Refuge. Comes about now anyway in the process we're going through. Okay? Pardon? Yes, yes, that's right. It'll be here. That's right. 7 o'clock. And it might not last long, so we can have more after that. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. So the thing is, actually, well, no, you see, okay, let's think. Normally with refuge, other people who aren't going to take it don't go. So maybe, no, it's not true. I'm sorry. It's wrong what I'm saying. It's wrong I'm saying. I'm sorry. Tomorrow, for people who want to take it, well, certainly you go. Who want to renew their refuge. But, you should think about it. You've never met the person before. You should feel a connection with the person. You just don't take it with any old person, But if you want to, you feel, because he's a very holy being, but that's for you to find out. You have to have confidence in him. You'll have a relationship of a teacher with the person you take refuge from. It doesn't mean that's your main teacher, but you just have that sort of a connection with them. So, you think about that. So if you do want to do that, then you can go tomorrow night. But no, we will have our teaching in another room. Sorry. But if you wanted to go, if you just wanted to go and observe, I'm not sure if he'll give, we'll have to check with him, because normally people who aren't taking it don't go. But if people just wanted to be there for that, then absolutely for sure do that, And if maybe we decide as a group you all want to do that, that's fine, I'm happy with that. Do you see? We'll sort it out, we'll work it out.